Hello everyone. Happy Friday. I'm going to give it a few minutes, see if anybody wants to join us live. Today I'm going to cover the influences that we have in society and habits that can influence our posture and our symmetry. So that'll be fun. Let me just give it just a minute and see if anybody wants to join us. Let's see. Hello. I see my friend Michelle has joined us. So I'll preface this a little bit. So you know how I talk a lot about how we have innate asymmetries in our body, right? Hello, Michelle. So good to see you. It's Friday. We made it. Oh my gosh. Okay. But yeah, so we have these innate asymmetries in our body, and I talk a lot about that, right? Like how we have a liver on the one side and we have an asymmetrical diaphragm, and that puts us in these patterns. Well, there's a lot of things that society is reinforcing, and there are a lot of things that our habits are reinforcing. And those are some things that we can talk about. We could maybe recognize them and change a couple of habits, things like that. But it's really a cool subject because a lot of things you're going to go like, oh man, I didn't realize that was actually a habit that's out there. So anyhow, one of the big things I want to talk about is actually your visual field. Okay, I can't remember if we talked about vision on this group at all, but because we have innate tendencies to have a right eye that's more focused, and I'm sorry, a left eye that's more focused and a right eye that's more aware of our periphery. Okay, what that does is sort of shifts our visual field so we're more comfortable viewing things on the right side of us. Okay, it kind of expands our right visual field and condenses our left visual field. And so that's an innate habit that we are, or an innate part of the asymmetry that we develop as humans, but at the same time we really we reinforce it more than it needs to be. So think about it. How many times do we feel, I know I do, feel more comfortable sitting, like say you're you're in church or you're in a classroom and you go to choose a seat. A lot of times I will choose a seat on the left side of the room so I can visually, because my visual field is more comfortable to the right. So start noticing those kind of things. See if you pick up on those kind of things. We tend to, like we go out for a walk we tend to have our visual, like the river or the pretty scenery, a lot of times is off on our right. And so one of the things that you want to try to consider doing is to expand that left peripheral vision and learn to focus more with that right eye and bring our focal vision, or bring our visual field more to the left, give us some input there to help us keep that balance. So you want to try to walk, like if you've got a river somewhere, or you've got scenery somewhere, you always want to try to walk so that it's on your left. You want to try to situate yourself so that your TV maybe is a little bit off to the left of you. You certainly want to make sure that you're, like even just right now, like my computer screen, just a little bit off to my right? Because I'm just used to that being centered. So pay attention to those kind of things. And that's an easy thing that you can do, is start to try to bring your center of vision more symmetrical. And the reason that that's important is because if your body thinks center is over here, you're going to take your body and hold your body in positions that make you feel centered. And that's how your visual field can affect your posture and your symmetry. The other interesting thing that falls along with your visual field is the fact that we are very comfortable taking left turns, okay? Because it's like a more condensed on that left side, right? If you think of the inside of that circle, inside of that pathway, more condensed, more expansive on the right? So you get on a track, everybody is told to run left, right? You baseball field, run hard, turn left, right? I bet if you noticed, if you have a choice when you go take a walk, you probably take more lefts than you do rights. You don't always have that option, but it's comfortable. We're more comfortable that way, taking left turns and left turns and left turns. Okay, pretty interesting. you should try to pay attention to that, you know, and hey, maybe take some right turns. I even noticed that it's easier for me to turn into a parking space. I'm more comfortable turning into the left space than I am trying to turn that car to the right. It's really kind of cool. It's interesting. You know, another thing that our society has given us that puts us in a visual pattern, locks us in a visual pattern, is reading. Okay, those of you that were in the tranquility and rest class got a little bit of this, but we're even patterned. We get into these patterns when we're reading, right? So we read left to right, left to right, left to right. Our words go left to right, and our sentences go left to right. And what that does is can lock us into a pattern. And when our body gets really into these patterns, it's hard for us to rest and relax and get out of that fight or flight. So that's another thing that can be influencing our posture, because when we get in fight or flight, we tend to be a little bit more upright, a little bit more extended in the spine. So that's another fun thing. There's actually, I have a document that you read, the words go from right to left, even though the sentence still runs left to right. So it's like makes your eyes have to change things up a little bit. And it actually helps relax you. So that's pretty cool. So visual field is a big one that we have a little bit of innate tendency to be that way. That's usually more developed though from society and habits. So that's a big one that we can actually change and work on and work toward. Most of our visual asymmetries are a byproduct of the society and the habits. Certainly there are people that have differences in their acuity in their eyes, and I still wonder, was that developed, you know, with time versus something you were just strictly born with, right? But for the most part, those visual things are societal and habits. All right, so sit maybe on the right side of the couch, right side of the room. Put all the pretty things on the left side when you're on your walk. Maybe think about taking the track going the opposite way. I'm not against that. I've done that a lot. Everybody's like, what is she doing? But I'm like walking the other way, right? To keep myself out of that pattern. All right. Another big thing that society and just habits have done to us is our chairs. Okay, have wreaked havoc on our posture. We sit in chairs, right? We sit on toilets. Okay, so where I'm going to talk to you about the squatty potty. Squatty potty is fun. It's a fun topic. Everybody's like, really? That thing sounds really crazy, you know? There's truth behind this, okay? Our ability to keep a neutral posture, okay, and to not get our pelvis too far forward, and when that happens, it closes down our outlets, okay, our ability to evacuate that, and that leads to a lot of our constipation and GERD problems and all kinds of things, right? And even just sitting in our chairs puts us in a position where a lot of times our knees are maybe even a little bit lower than our hips. Right, and we sit with support on our back, and something that may even shove our backs forward a little bit. Okay, so chairs, we really, our body is happiest when it can get into that full squatted position. It's definitely happier using the bathroom that way and having babies that way, but definitely even sitting. So if you think about some of the Asian cultures and some of the other cultures that don't have chairs and don't have toilets, tend to have less problems with arthritis and things like that. So that's kind of cool. You know, the thing is, if you never lose the ability to squat, you're going to be able to maintain that through adulthood. The problem is when we start sitting in chairs and we start sitting on toilets and we start sitting, you know, more and not squatting, that brings our body out of that. We can't maintain the symmetry that provides for us, and then it becomes really difficult to get in that position, that squatting position. But I'd recommend taking a lift, putting a little bit of a lift under your feet when you're sitting in a chair. I would recommend maybe a squatty potty, which basically it's like a stool that goes under your feet to put you a little bit more in a squatting position. So chairs have been a problem for us. Okay, they've created that's a combination of we're more comfortable that way. It's a little bit more work to squat, but society starts introducing us to chairs at a pretty young age. And so we lose that ability, and then it becomes really difficult, and then it just kind of spirals from there. And so I would tell my son, that when they go in a huddle at soccer practice, when he was little, I'm like, look, he could still squat. It was still pretty comfortable for him. I said, look, I don't want you sitting like crisscross applesauce on the ground when the rest of your team is, like, when you're having a huddle, like, just squat, and for as long as I could get him to do that, I had him doing that. It's a lot harder to tell a teenager what to do at this point, so I don't think he does it anymore. So chairs and toilets have kind of created some problems for us and for our posture. The way that our doors open, I don't know, you left-handers have probably noticed this, but most of us right-handers, it's just we don't realize it. But doors, we open, usually the handles are across on our left side, and so we're opening a door by reaching with our right arm and opening it in that pattern. That will help us, that we will develop. There's a reason why they created doors to open that way, because it is naturally a little easier for right-handers, which are the majority of us. But the problem is it puts us in a pattern. So then we do everything. We reach for everything with our right arms, right? To start trying to reach for things with our left arms. And the reason why it's easier for us to reach with our right arms is because it's a lot easier for our upper torso to rotate to the left because of that innate asymmetry going on in us. It's just when we reinforce it, right? And it has to do with that turning left that we talked about with our visual field too. That upper half of us just gets so used to being oriented and turning to the left. It's more challenging to turn to the right. So that's a combination of the way we are made and internally, but also society adding on to that. So think about reaching for things with your left hand, opening doors with your left hand, and just observing that fact. I bet you now you'll start noticing that a lot. There are doors that open the other way, but the standard door is usually open from the left to the right, right? And that's the way the way a lot of things go, like left to right, and these just patterns. So those kind of things, like door handles and things that are made, people see them, made for right-handers, right? But it's more than just that. And so encourage you to get in the habit of reaching for things with your left arm. Okay, you lefties probably don't have that as much of a problem with that, except for what society kind of puts in front of you that you have to do that way. Okay, all right. So we talked about vision. We talked about chairs. We talked about doors and things like that put us in that kind of pattern. And so another couple things are actually habits, right, that we have created on our own that we don't really realize are habits, and that can create a problem in our posture and our symmetry. One of the biggest ones is just that narrative that sit up straight, and that like we're really sitting up on the front edge of our sit bones, almost on the pubis almost, right? We sit so far forward, and bring your shoulders back, that military stance, and that sitting upright. That's what we have associated with. We've been told that is appropriate posture. So that's a societal influence there that has created some problems. Sitting in that upright posture requires you. First of all, it puts your diaphragm in that flattened position. So all that breathing stuff that we've talked about in the past, it really, you hear me talking about trying to get that rib cage back, trying to get the front of your ribs to go down and to not protrude that chest forward, right? So, and sitting on the front edges of our sit bones puts us in this extended spine and a forward tilted pelvis. And it makes it really hard for us to get deep in our hip sockets. So squatting is not even going to happen if you were in that kind of position. So that narrative that we've been told, sit up straight, has created a lot of problems. You really ought to be able to keep our ribs stacked on top of our pelvis, sitting on the back of our sit bones. Okay, and that's a whole other day that we can talk about, but there are things that we've been told that are working against us as well. So that narrative of sitting up straight has been creating a lot of postural problems and alignment problems and breathing problems and nervous energy problems, like people being stuck in fight or flight. So that has also been a contributor. And let's see, I have my notes here. So a lot of habits that we get into, now you're going to pay attention to you. Not only what side of the couch do you sit on, okay, but we tend to sit in a way that keeps this is going to look backwards to you guys, but our right side stays short. So even if you're a left-handed person, you tend to do this, okay? We tend to be we kind of keep that right elbow closer to our right hip, and the left elbow doesn't really contact that left side as much. And that keeps us open, it helps to reinforce that pattern that we already have. There's a reason why we default into that position, but we need to balance that out. So I challenge you to start trying to see, do I really keep that right elbow tucked in close to me? When I'm sitting on the couch, am I sitting in a way that's like, if you're on that left side of the couch already, because you can see better on that to the right? And we kind of lean on that couch, like lean on it, and that right side stays really closed. Okay, what I like to do, because I do sit on the left side of the couch, okay, and creates a little bit of a, frustration if I try to sit on the other side. So what I do is I stack pillows underneath my right side so that I can at least stay equal side to side, or even kind of lean into that as if I had that armrest there. I make my own armrest there. Okay, so pay attention when you're in your car driving, when we're at our desk writing. Okay, tend to be where we might lean here to the left, especially us right-handers, and use our right hand. Okay, and my right side's really short right now, so just trying to be cognizant of that. Let me keep my left elbow close and see if I can continue to write. It's a little bit more challenging for us, but those are things you want to pay attention to. The other habit that we develop ourselves is allowing that left knee to kind of sit out, like to see turned out on that left knee, right? We tend to take our left leg and cross it over the right. That one tends to get a little bit, people will compensate a lot, and you might notice that's not quite as much biased that way. But that, I guarantee you, when you first started crossing your legs, that was the way you would tend towards. Because we're in the pattern that we're in, we tend to be able to externally rotate, turn that left hip out a lot more naturally, so we just keep doing it, right? So you get in the car, these are the people where you get in the car and that left knee, like, is hanging out on the side of the door, right? Especially because that's the one that's usually not doing anything unless you have a stick. So it's sitting there, it's just like flopped out against the door, right? And then you're like leaning over there on the car, and you're shortening your right side, and your left knee is hanging out, flopping out towards the door. Okay, try to get in the habit of bringing that left knee and letting it stay straight in front of your hip, right? Cross opposite legs, like switch that up. Okay, switch it up a bit. So those are things that are habits that are taking this innate asymmetry and making it worse. So don't force the issue with any of these things. Just try to change these habits a little bit so that you don't get drawn further and further into the patterns. Let me see if there was another one that I thought of. You're going to start noticing these kind of things. I think if you guys notice things, bring them up to me so I can be like, oh yeah, there's a reason why that is. And because there's so many patterns going on and so many habits going on and things that we don't even realize that we're set up to put us in these asymmetrical patterns, right? And it does not help our posture. Another thing that we've been given, these lumbar supports, like every office chair you have, and you get in these cars now, the driver's seat now, like you can pump up that lumbar support and really give you that really good support. And we've been told that that's what we're supposed to be doing. Like that's good for our back. And if it feels good, it's because you're already kind of in that posture, and it's just supporting you there. But you certainly don't want to push yourself, like make that happen. I mean, really, I will tell people, Yes, I know. Lean into the right side. I mean, it's like it's so easy, right? And it's like weird to keep that left elbow, just hold it by your side. That's going to be a big one, I think. A lot of people are going to notice that right side being shortened. But I will tell people, take that, like deflate that. Don't pump up that lumbar support. You really want to be able to let your back like open up a little bit. You don't really want anything influencing it. You need your core to kind of hold you in a stable position. So you want to try to find, you may have it pumped up and you really don't even need to. You just do it because you think that's what you're supposed to do. If that's a challenge and that's uncomfortable for you, like reach out to me and I'll help you walk through some things, or maybe we need to get together and talk that out. But we really should not have to have a lumbar support pushing our low back forward and our belly opening up, right? We need to be able to sit back into a more relaxed position instead of like being so or forcing and locking that lumbar spine. So that's another habit that's been kind of put out there, is the lumbar support. And then I had one more note here, which was about focal vision. So I missed this on the vision. Okay. When we focus, it draws us into this tension pattern. Okay. Focusing is actually a fight or flight activity. Okay. It's reason because think about it. When we're in trouble, when something's a threat to us, we are like, we have to be really, really cognizant of what's going on, and we focus in. And so that can pull our whole posture, right? And it actually becomes, if we do too much focal vision, like computers, phones, even reading, if those are our habits. It's interesting that baseball pitchers, okay, who are their sport requires very focal vision. A lot of them choose things like hunting and golf as their habits because they're comfortable with that very focal vision. The problem is that can make it very difficult to allow freedom of movement and a good proper posture, and then allow you to actually have side-to-side equality. Okay, so we need to pay attention to those kind of things. Are we focusing all the time? And allowing ourselves to expand our peripheral vision allows us to get in a little bit more of a relaxed state. It keeps us in a better posture. And honestly, that focal vision will start to stimulate this need for a forward head posture. It's like a reflex going on in your brain by feeling like you're almost, if you look down too much, it's like you're looking down at your brain. It's like, think about it. When you look down off a cliff, your brain's like, whoa, right? And you create this kind of a reaction. That goes on if you're looking down and your visual field is kind of shifted to where center is now down instead of straight ahead of you. So see if you do a lot of those things. I know I do. Lots of focal vision. Even when I'm like not having to, I tend to look down at my feet, look down at the ground, look. When I'm trying to look expansively, I find myself focusing on like a tree instead of looking at everything. Try to break that habit because it does affect your posture and affects your symmetry. There are all kinds of things that are it's so fun for me to talk about. So if you guys think of anything, notice anything, Michelle's going to work on keeping her left elbow close to her left hip. Right, Michelle? You're going to practice that. And then situating, you might find yourself, you're like, wow, I do like just ever so slightly, I like to have my computer off to the right and just make sure it's centered, or maybe try it on the left and see how that works. We have innate asymmetries, right? Our organs and all of that we've talked about in the past. We've got these internal stimulus that make us not function symmetrically, right? And then you add society's influences, right? Things that have been put out there that feed the pattern, and then we have our own habits that feed the pattern. So trying to bring light on those kind of things. And if you guys think of anything like Jesse else is on. If you guys think of anything that stands out, like, oh, hey, what about this? I noticed that, like, this habit's always here, or this pattern's always here. You're going to start noticing them now that I've brought them up. So let me know what you see. All right. Anybody have any questions about any of that stuff? Probably not. Okay. All right, guys. Well, have a great weekend, and I will see you guys soon. Okay. Bye-bye.